Greetings and welcome to Cracked Love Chronicles. It was a Friday afternoon, 2 hours into their journey from New York, with just one more hour to go before they arrived home. Jack and Emily had just left their only child, Ava, at her college campus as she embarked on her freshman year. Emily cast a sidelong look at her husband, Bill, who was driving their Ford Transit. They decided against taking Ava's BMW 230i convertible, as they required the additional space to carry her belongings. Time slips away, she mused. It seems like only yesterday, on the day of Ava's high school graduation, when she took a pregnancy test and found out she was going to be a mother. During that period, Jack was attending university, pursuing a degree in engineering. Their parents had shown unwavering support, understanding the bond between their children and recognizing the depth of their love. Emily remained at her parents' house following Ava's birth, and she and Jack tied the knot once he finished his education. She devoted herself to being a mother, while Jack climbed the ranks from a junior engineer at a local firm to ultimately managing his own thriving HVAC business. Throughout the last 10 years, his company expanded significantly, landing contracts with prominent construction firms. Jack was a devoted individual, consistently loyal to his profession and his loved ones. "The house is going to feel empty without her," Jack said, his voice heavy with sorrow. Emily responded, "She was always more connected to you than to me. From the very beginning, she has always been her father's little princess." Jack remarked that she is our princess and deserves to be treated accordingly. "Have you observed her demeanor over the last few months? She made me feel insignificant. In your presence, she held on tightly, yet in your absence, she kept her distance from me. At times, she would even tease me," Emily remarked. "Come on, Emily, she's just a child," Jack argued. Her final year was filled with tension. She faced tremendous pressure to achieve top marks in order to secure her place at Columbia. "It's essential to make an effort to comprehend. I understand your point, Bill, but have you ever observed her reactions when we're together in the same space? Do you recall 2 months back, when I was lounging on the couch and she approached me from behind with a knife? I genuinely believed she was going to cause me harm. I witnessed genuine animosity in her gaze." Jack responded, a hint of irritation lacing his words, "You're imagining things." Emily remained quiet, hesitant to delve deeper into the conversation and provoke his anger, at least for the moment. Instead, she retrieved her phone and swiftly typed out a text message. "We will arrive in 30 minutes. A moment later, her phone chimed. "Is it from Ava?" Jack inquired. "No, it's Bethany," Emily responded. "So, how is she faring with Philip?" "During our last barbecue, she kept going on about how he was always working late, putting in too many hours, and putting others before her," Jack mentioned. "She was fully aware of the challenges that came with marrying a sheriff," he remarked. Emily opted for silence once more. She simply wished for the journey to be serene until they arrived home. Resting against the window, she quietly hoped they had arrived by now. As Jack pulled into the driveway, he spotted a sheriff's car stationed in front of their garage. He parked the van behind it, observing as Philip and his deputy emerged and exchanged greetings with him. "What's happening?" Jack, filled with uncertainty, inquired of Philip as he drew near. Emily swiftly positioned herself behind the sheriff's assistant. Jack scowled. "This is the aspect of my work I despise the most," Philip remarked, extracting a manila envelope and passing it to Bill. "William Thornton, you have been officially notified." "Philip, is this a prank of some sort?" Jack inquired, his hands quivering as he grasped the envelope. He glanced at Emily, yet she averted her gaze, unable to face him. "Why, Emily? What have I created?" "Jack, it would be wise for you to go," Philip interjected. "Engage a legal professional and begin the process of your divorce. A restraining order has been issued, prohibiting you from coming within 500 feet of Emily." "Philip, just last Sunday, you and Bethany were here for Ava's going-away barbecue," Jack exclaimed, his voice escalating with frustration. "Both of you were aware this was inevitable, yet you arrived at my home, indulged in my food, savored my drinks, and even offered Ava your best wishes with cheerful expressions. So here you are, in this moment, doing this? That's what I would label as hypocrisy. Jack, please make an effort to comprehend. What is it that you want me to understand, Philip?" Jack erupted. "That you're unpleasant?" He glanced at Emily, his gaze ablaze with rage. "And you treacherous deceiver. If your feelings for me had changed, you could have simply said so. I would have ended our marriage on good terms." "Jack, the restraining order is already in effect," Philip stated, maintaining a steady tone. "Please, I would appreciate it if you could go now." Jack marched to his van, tossed the envelope onto the passenger seat, and slammed the door with a forceful bang. He then redirected his attention to Philip. I require my personal belongings. I trust you're not inconsiderate enough to deny me the chance to collect a few of my things, he remarked, retrieving his house key from his pocket and making his way to the front door. Your key isn't working, Philip remarked, pulling out another set of keys and passing them to his assistant. Bill's gaze grew shadowy. It appears you've managed to handle everything on your own. Or could it have been Bethany? Allow me to make a prediction. During our absence, she was present with a locksmith, replacing the locks. Philip remained silent, offering only a slight nod in acknowledgement. The assistant guided Jack into the room, remaining nearby as he filled 2 suitcases with his belongings. Rest easy, Philip reassured Emily. I will ensure my team conducts regular patrols of the area. If I were in your position, I wouldn't spend the next few days alone in the house. He's seething at the moment, and rage can lead individuals to act in unexpected ways. Emily responded, I won't be alone. I plan to invite a friend to spend the weekend with me. A companion. I see, Philip whispered softly to himself. Moments later, Jack stepped out of the house, loading the suitcases into the back of his van. Emily received the new set of keys from the assistant. Jack seized the envelope, extracted the divorce papers, and started to read. His expression grew steely as he assessed the requirements. Hold on just a moment, he exclaimed. This unfaithful individual is demanding half of my business? Half of our savings? What about the house? Is that her vehicle? What about the monthly alimony? She's attempting to drain my resources. Bill, if you don't go, I'll have no choice but to take you in, Philip cautioned, moving towards his handcuffs. That's unnecessary, Philip, Jack remarked, his tone icy and unwavering. I'll sign the documents immediately and then fade away. He retrieved a pen from his pocket and, with unwavering confidence, inscribed his name on each designated line. He insisted on having the document attested and requested his copy. Emily, Philip, and the assistant were momentarily paralyzed, taken aback by Bill's unforeseen response. They were taken aback by how readily Jack agreed to the conditions. Emily beamed, a sense of triumph washing over her. She had achieved all her desires and was now liberated from the ties of both a husband and a daughter. Philip affixed his signature to the documents as a witness and passed Jack his copy. Jack silently stepped into his van, leaving the conversation behind. Who was that individual? In a sudden burst of anger, he turned on Emily. For how long have you been involved with him? Go inside and lock the door behind you, Philip instructed Emily, then made his way over to Bill's van. Emily was ushered in by his assistant. Please refrain from any impulsive actions. Consider Ava, Philip insisted. I've already messed up, Jack retorted. That was tying the knot with this disloyal woman. He ignited the engine's roar. She opted for divorce, fully aware that I would never consent to an open marriage as you did. What kind of open marriage are we talking about? Philip inquired, clearly surprised. Stop pretending, Philip. It's common knowledge. Philip's expression contorted in bewilderment. What on earth are you saying? He almost exclaimed. Jack wore a bitter smirk. Listen, Philip, it's clear that while you're burning the midnight oil, your brother Tom is the one cozying up to Bethany. Philip's demeanor shifted to one of shadow and gloom. Are you attempting to sway my feelings against my own brother? You scoundrel. Oh, for heaven's sake, Jack interjected. She is being unfaithful to you. I regret to bring you disappointing news. He let out a deep breath. You're the law, Philip. You have developed a keen ability to identify deception. Return home and consult with Bethany. That will provide you with the answers you seek. Jack backed out of the driveway and drove away. Now by herself, Emily filled a glass with wine and gazed at Philip's cherished treasure, the train station. The artwork held a value of no less than $100,000, perhaps even exceeding that amount. It was left here. His absence, she mused, a sly grin playing at the corners of her mouth. She picked up her phone and hit the speed dial button. Come on, Jacob, pick up, she whispered in exasperation before ending the call. She muttered to herself as she settled into her seat, savoring a sip of her wine, feeling frustrated that he was meant to come directly here after work. Her thoughts wandered back to the moment they first crossed paths, nearly a year ago in a bustling department store. They had quite literally collided with one another. Jacob was employed in the footwear department. In his 20s, he possessed a sculpted physique that rendered her utterly weak at the knees. After exchanging numbers, she reached out the following day and extended an invitation for him to come over. He arrived during his lunch break. They shared an intimate moment, and when he finally departed, she felt utterly exhausted, hardly able to remain upright. That evening, she confided in Jack that she was unwell and decided to retire to bed early. From that moment, she realized that Jack could never hold a candle to Jacob, her vibrant and spirited partner. Jack was perpetually absorbed in his work. As night descended, he found himself utterly drained. He dedicated his evenings to assisting Ava with her homework, then immersed himself in his work files. As he settled into bed, slumber overtook him in an instant. Emily drained her glass of wine and filled it once more. Exasperated, she pressed speed dial once more, only to be greeted by the robotic voice of the automated message. The number you are trying to reach is currently not in service. Kindly attempt once more at a later time. With a frown, she tossed her phone onto the couch, snatched the remote, and switched on the TV. Yet, her focus eluded her. Frustrated, she resolved to step into the shower. Her thoughts wandered back to the recent memory of sharing a shower with Jacob, merely a week prior. He had shared closeness with her in ways she had always denied Bill. Jacob had made it evident that was a privilege reserved solely for him. Only a day prior, she found herself in his apartment, utterly enveloped by the intensity of his desire. Armed with a spare key, she had the freedom to visit her lover at her whim. Occasionally, she would stop by his apartment during his work hours, tidying up the entire space as though it belonged to her. She gifted him garments, footwear, and luxurious fragrances. On his birthday, she presented him with a luxurious watch. From time to time, she would slip him some pocket money and allow him to take the wheel of her BMW. Oh dear, I truly need him at this moment. I'm aflame with longing. I require him to fulfill my desires. Emily whispered softly to herself. She struggled to remember the last moment of closeness she had shared with Jack, but it eluded her mind. Could it have been 3 months ago? 6? More extensive? It was of no consequence. She had Jacob now, a genuine partner who could meet her desires. With Jack gone, they felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. At last, they could embrace their love without restraint, and Jacob would take the step of moving in with her that very evening. Once she finished her shower, she made her way back to the living room, picked up her phone, and muttered a curse softly to herself. Where have you gone, Jacob? Why won't you answer the phone? Feeling a wave of frustration, she made her way to the kitchen to whip up a simple dinner. Frustration bubbled within her as she muttered, if only I could step outside, I'd head right to his place. Suddenly, a flicker on the screen drew her gaze. She hurried back to the living room and cranked up the volume. Her breath hitched in her throat as she absorbed the breaking news segment, a wave of horror washing over her. Philip found himself in handcuffs, being escorted toward a police car. Sheriff Philip Anderson fatally shot his wife in the head before proceeding to his brother's workplace, where he shot him 5 times. The news anchor reported that both his wife and brother have passed away. Emily's hand shook as she turned off the TV and sank onto the couch, dazed. Ah, Bethany. I told you to be careful, she whispered, her eyes glistening with tears. That night, sleep eluded her. In that moment, a profound sense of solitude enveloped her. She had pushed Jack away. Her beloved was beyond reach. Her closest companion was gone. For months, her daughter had been keeping her distance. Her parents had long since departed. The sole family member remaining to her was her sister, who resided 300 miles away with her husband, Tom. Saturday came and went, yet there was still no news from Jacob. A storm of anxiety swirled in her stomach, swiftly transforming into a wave of frustration. At the very least, he could have left a message to inform her of what was happening, she mused with a sense of bitterness. By Sunday morning, her patience had frayed to its limit. She made the choice to head over to Jacob's apartment by car. As she crossed the threshold, an unusual sensation enveloped her. A sense of unease lingered in the air. The walls stood empty. His electronics had vanished. The walk-in closet stood devoid of any belongings. His personal effects seemed to have vanished without a trace. With her heart racing, she hurried to the bathroom, but found nothing. She fell onto the bed, tears streaming down her cheeks. He has departed. Without a single word, he departed, she wept. Jacob had vowed that they would be united. He persuaded her to leave Bill, promising he would move in as soon as everything was settled. Now he had disappeared, yearning for clarity. She made her way to the department store, which was conveniently open on Sundays. She anticipated encountering Jacob at work, but instead, she came across one of his colleagues. The woman detailed that Jacob had come in on Friday morning as he typically did, but had requested to go back home, stating he had left his wallet behind. He never returned. Later that day, he composed an email to formally resign from his position. Emily stumbled back to her car, her thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. What is the reason? What could have prompted him to act this way towards me? She wept bitterly. As she made her way home, she paused at a gas station to refuel her vehicle. As she approached the register to complete her transaction, the cashier cast her an odd glance. Her credit and debit cards were both declined. She muttered a string of expletives when she had no choice but to part with the last of her cash in her purse. Upon returning home, she sought solace in a bottle. On Monday morning, she marched into the bank and insisted on meeting the manager. Her frustration morphed into disbelief when she learned that her joint account contained less than $5. Last Friday, Mrs. Thornton, your husband came in and closed your joint credit card. The manager conveyed that he also made us aware of your ongoing divorce and emphasized that he would no longer take responsibility for the mortgage on the house or your car. Emily felt her heart racing. Surely, that must be an error. She protested that her car was fully paid off and the mortgage on the house should have already been resolved. A car loan was approved by the bank. Mrs. Thornton, we possess all the required documentation. Moreover, your husband secured a second mortgage on the house to finance your daughter's university tuition and related costs. Emily sensed her knees beginning to tremble. But how can it be that my account is empty? She inquired, her voice wavering. Last week, your account was charged for 3 months of overdue mortgage payments. Recently, there have been no deposits, leading to the depletion of any remaining funds. What is the status of my husband's business? Monthly transfers from the company's account were expected to occur. Regrettably, Mrs. Thornton, I am unable to share any details regarding Mr. Thornton's financial records or business transactions. Nonetheless, I must inform you that failure to make the upcoming mortgage payments will result in the repossession of both your house and car. Emily felt a whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. But I don't have a job, she whispered, her fingers tightening around the desk's edge. I recommend you talk about these issues with your attorney, the manager stated with conviction. In a moment of urgency, she opened the safe deposit box she had with Bill. Other than her jewelry, it was utterly devoid of anything else. With a swift motion, she collected the valuables, crammed them into her handbag, and rushed out of the bank. As soon as she emerged into the open air, she reached for her phone to call Bill. An automated voice informed her that the number she had dialed was out of service. Exasperated, she dialed his office. The phone continued to ring without pause. She muttered a curse before quickly dialing Ava's number. What is it that you desire, you unfeeling woman? Ava's voice brimmed with fury. Emily inhaled sharply. Is this the way you communicate with your mother? What other ways can I communicate with a woman who has betrayed our family? Ava erupted. Emily hesitated. I just need to speak with your father. I'm unable to get in touch with him. Are you aware of his whereabouts? I absolutely do. However, I shall not disclose that information, Ava stated with a chill in her voice. Emily felt a constriction in her chest. Ava, if you could, please. Your callous dismissal of him speaks volumes about your character. I prefer to keep my distance from you. In my view, I have no mother. Tears stung at the corners of Emily's eyes. Please refrain from calling me again. Actually, I will be changing my number. The connection was lost. Emily remained motionless in her car, her grip firm on the steering wheel, gazing blankly into the horizon. Her thoughts whirled in a chaotic dance. Or had everything unraveled? What could have caused Jacob to disappear without a trace? Resolute in her efforts to reclaim what was lost, she reached out to her lawyer and successfully arranged a meeting for the late afternoon. Hours later, she found herself seated opposite her attorney, struggling to maintain her composure. Following your call this morning, Mrs. Thornton, we undertook a financial investigation into your husband's company. Her attorney conveyed the information to her. Emily straightened her posture. So? Last Thursday, he submitted his bankruptcy filing just before you delivered the divorce papers. The company appears to be on the brink of liquidation. Emily felt a tightness in her throat. But you mentioned I would receive millions. She almost exclaimed. Kindly stay composed, Mrs. Thornton. Just a fortnight ago, everything seemed financially stable. All circumstances aligned perfectly for you. However, the company's bank accounts have been frozen. Emily tightened her grip, her fists balling up in determination. What is the situation with the mortgages for the house and car? Just last week, he leveraged your house as collateral for yet another loan. Once more, prior to your service to him. Emily felt a surge of anxiety coursing through her veins. What about the car? Upon your signature of the ownership documents, the lawyer noted that you also signed for a loan in your name. Emily's complexion drained of color. This cannot possibly be accurate. She murmured, tears cascading down her face. Mrs. Thornton, could I inquire about something personal? Do you believe your husband had any idea he was about to be served? Emily shook her head, lost in contemplation. Negative. He was completely blindsided. She inhaled deeply, striving to regain her composure. So, if I'm getting this right, it seems I won't be receiving any money from my husband's company. I find myself without any funds in the bank, and both my home and vehicle are in jeopardy of being taken back. The attorney acknowledged with a nod. Regrettably, that seems to be the case. Is there a way to ensure he covers the mortgage, at the very least? Given that his business was his main source of revenue, he now finds himself in a state of financial ruin. Once he secures a job, we can advocate for alimony. Emily's thoughts surged like a whirlwind. We possess several investment certificates, yet I was unable to locate them within our safe deposit box. We can delve into when those were cashed and perform a comprehensive review of his company's records. Furthermore, it is imperative that we find your husband immediately. His legal advisor is managing all aspects of the situation. Proceed with the investigation, she urged swiftly. The attorney paused, contemplating the next move. Mrs. Thornton, please be aware that all of this will result in extra charges. What strategies do you have in mind to manage the expenses? Emily had not taken into account the increasing costs. In that moment, a thought flickered through her mind, and a smile graced her lips. I possess a painting of considerable value. Excellent. Have it appraised, sell it, and send us a check, so we can start our project. Absolutely fine. I'll reach out to you shortly. One final note, Mrs. Thornton, in the most challenging situation, you must be ready to leave your residence. I recommend that you begin exploring other housing options. Later, at home, she found herself gazing at Philip's masterpiece, the train station. With a heavy heart, she whispered to the painting, I truly wish to hold on to you, but alas, my unfortunate husband compels us to say goodbye. She pulled out her phone and called her sister. Hey, sis, I could really use your help with something. I have always been here to grant your wishes. Her sister replied with kindness. Jack and I have decided to part ways. Is this a prank of some sort? No, my dear. It's intricate. I'm looking for a temporary place to stay and would appreciate the opportunity to use your guest room. I'll go over all the details when we meet. What is the situation with Ava? How's she handling it? Emily let out a deep sigh. It's clear that she has a special bond with her father. In her perspective, I am the antagonist. Is there truly no way to mend the situation? Perhaps some guidance would be beneficial? I have my doubts about that. I sincerely apologize. Everything is perfectly fine on my side. I believe Tom will be fine with it, and our daughter will be excited to have your company for some time. Thanks, sis. I'll inform you of my arrival time. On Tuesday, Emily made her way to a goldsmith to get her jewelry evaluated. To her dismay, she learned that all her creations were merely gold-plated copper and low-quality replicas. That scoundrel. He presented me with imitation jewelry. She seethed with anger. Driven by a sense of urgency, she hurried to a prestigious art gallery to consult with an appraiser. She inquired about the worth of her penal painting, depicting the train station. The specialist thoroughly scrutinized the work, paying close attention to each nuance. Penal's The Train Station stands as his crowning achievement, he noted. He portrayed feelings with such clarity, the comings and goings, happiness and sadness, all woven together in one moment. He set the painting gently on the easel, aimed a spotlight at it, and employed a magnifying glass for a more detailed examination. Moments later, he erupted into laughter. Emily felt a tightness in her stomach. Is there an issue? She inquired, perplexed. Hold on, I have something to share with you, the man said, still laughing. He placed his laptop on the table next to the easel and navigated to a website. With a few deft taps on the keys, an image of the train station materialized on the screen. With a focus on the bottom left corner, he indicated a particular detail. Do you see this? A man and a young girl stand on the platform, observing a woman approach the train, her back turned to them. The man appears utterly devastated, while the little girl is in tears. Emily gave a slight nod. Indeed, I understand that. What does it matter? She inquired, her impatience evident. The gentleman presented her with a magnifying glass. Now, juxtapose it with your artwork. Emily examined the bottom left corner of her artwork with keen interest. Her breath hitched, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of consciousness. In her artwork, the man and the little girl shared a moment of laughter, pointing at the woman in a way that suggested they were mocking her. It's not real, she stuttered. Indeed, I apologize, but it is a skillfully executed forgery. Emily sank into a chair, overwhelmed by a sense of defeat. The appraiser stated that he could provide you with $200 for it. I simply want to display it in my office to bring some joy and laughter to my friends and clients. With no alternatives left, Emily finalized the agreement and stepped outside, a sense of defeat weighing heavily on her. The phone buzzed to life, displaying her sister's familiar number. "Hey, sis," she replied, trying to conceal her sorrow. "Please refrain from using that term, you unkind individual," a furious voice retorted. Emily stood still, her body rigid. "Excuse me? What is the reason?" Tom got an email from an unfamiliar sender, addressed to all our relatives and mutual acquaintances. A link to an adult website was included. "Are you aware of what it contained, Emily?" "A multitude of videos featuring you and a certain individual, with date stamps ranging from last year to just last week. How could you do that?" Emily felt a parched sensation in her throat. She faltered. "You shared your marital bed with another man, and in a rather shabby apartment as well." Her sister erupted in anger. "I have the ability to clarify." "Unnecessary." Suddenly, the voice interrupted her. "Your behavior is repulsive. Tom prefers to keep you away from his family. He claimed you would taint me and our daughter. We are not open to you. Seek out your beloved." The connection was lost. Emily felt a chill seep through her veins. They were aware. They were aware from the very beginning. Everyone in the town is aware. A chilling awareness settled over her. A wave of anxiety washed over me. I need to leave this place. I must take off. In the distance. 5 years later, from Bill's perspective, Jack occupied the front row of the church, deep in contemplation. That morning, an unexpected phone call had come through. He kept it to himself, sharing the secret with no one. How was he able to do that? Not during such a celebratory moment. He had just escorted Ava down the aisle. At the altar, his daughter shone with a brilliance that captured the moment, as she exchanged vows with the young man who had been by her side since her freshman year of college. His thoughts wandered back to the moment Ava had reached out to him, tears streaming down her face. He was in his office when the enchanting voice of his princess came through the phone. Father, please come home," Ava pleaded, her voice trembling with emotion. "What seems to be the matter, dear? What's causing those tears?" Jack inquired, his voice tinged with concern. "Dad, I really need you to come right now. I find myself standing outside, on the street that stretches before the house." "What transpired?" "I will reach out to your mother." "Negative. Refrain from calling her. Simply arrive." "Please, Dad," Ava begged. His heart raced with intensity. "I'm en route, darling." As he drove, a sense of unease consumed him. What happened to keep Ava from school? What could have led her to be outside instead of inside the house? What was her reason for not wanting him to reach out to Emily? Did she sustain any injuries? His hold on the wheel became more intense. In an instant, he brought the vehicle to a screeching halt. The tires let out a piercing screech. He nearly sped through a red light. "Steady yourself," he reminded himself. He was aware that Ava had been immersed in a project late into the previous night. Just the day prior, Jack had assisted Ava with her project, providing insights and fine-tuning the specifics collaboratively. They gathered all the materials into a PowerPoint presentation and stored it on a USB flash drive. Ava stood patiently, just a block away from their home. Jack came to a stop, and she swiftly entered the vehicle. "Dad, please don't go to the house." "All right. Ava, fill me in on what's happening," Jack said, switching off the engine. Ava inhaled unsteadily. "This morning, in my haste to get to school, I left my USB drive behind. At lunchtime, I received special permission to return home and retrieve it. Upon my arrival, I noticed an aged Honda resting in our driveway. I entered and caught the sound of voices emanating from your room. I ascended the stairs with utmost stealth and glanced inside. The door remained ajar. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "All right, my dear, take a deep breath," Jack said softly, soothingly rubbing her back. "Feel free to proceed at your own pace." Ava took a deep breath. I spotted my mother with a gentleman. They were united. Jack remained motionless, grappling with the profound impact of his daughter's words. He was surprised that Ava, only 17, grasped the weight of betrayal with such clarity. "Do you truly believe in what you witnessed?" he inquired, pivoting to meet her gaze. Ava silently retrieved her phone and began to play a video. Bill felt a sinking sensation in his stomach as the footage validated her assertion. "Dad, please take her out of the house. I no longer wish to see her. She isn't my mother. My true mother would never act in such a way." Jack let out a slow breath. I need to ponder this, darling. What is there to ponder? Simply ask her to go. Ava reacted sharply. Jack elaborated. It's not as straightforward as it seems. Legal procedures are involved. Dad, are you still considering being with her? Ava inquired, her tone laced with exasperation. I don't support her actions, but before reaching any conclusions, I must grasp the complete context, the duration of this issue, and whether it was an isolated incident or part of a larger pattern. At that moment, Ava gestured towards the Honda as it exited their driveway. There he stands. Let us pursue him. Jack ignited the engine and drove the car toward a store. They observed the man as he maneuvered his vehicle into a parking spot, donned a uniform jacket, and made his way toward the employee entrance. He is employed here. Jack observed that he appeared youthful. Young or not, it doesn't matter, Ava said, capturing a few shots of the man and his vehicle. At least we've got one thing figured out now, Jack murmured. Very well, dear. I'll take you to school, then I'll return home to pick up your USB drive. I'll inform your mom that you reached out and requested me to deliver it to you. I can't let you confront her by yourself. Not at this moment, nor at any time in the future. Are you following me? Ava insisted. I comprehend. But what is the reason? Because I prefer to keep our awareness under wraps for now. I hope you can keep your composure and not reveal anything. What will you choose to do? Jack declared with conviction. I must uncover all the details. I want you to remain updated throughout the entire process. I assure you. Ava inhaled deeply. Understood. But please, don't leave me in the shadows, Dad. Make that vow to me. I promise, Princess, Jack assured her. I cherish you deeply. Ava embraced him with all her strength. I love you as well, Dad. Time is of the essence. Let's move swiftly. I require that USB prior to the commencement of my class. Jack navigated his way home and positioned his vehicle in the driveway. Upon entering, he announced, Honey, I'm home. Emily emerged unexpectedly, her expression one of surprise. Ah, Bill, there you are. Jack maintained her gaze. Who could it possibly be? Emily paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. I simply didn't anticipate your arrival at this time. Ava reached out. She left her flash drive behind. I have to take it to her, Jack remarked, moving past her. As he approached, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. He remained silent on the matter. He chose to grab the USB and walked away. Returning to his workspace, Jack settled at his desk, powered up his laptop, and started browsing the web for top-notch video and audio surveillance gear, along with cell phone tracking software. Jack subsequently made his way to an electronics store, acquiring all the essentials he required. On that pivotal day, he resolved that he would never lay a hand on his wife again. True to his word, he ensured Ava was updated on all matters. In the coming 3 months, Jack revealed a wealth of information. He discovered everything there was to know about Emily's lover, Jacob Wyatt. Jacob made it a point to stop by their home nearly every day, whether it was in the mornings before his second shift or during his lunch breaks. On weekends, when Emily claimed to be out shopping, she frequently found her way to Jacob's apartment, provided he wasn't busy with work. She possessed an extra key to his residence. Jack uncovered that Emily was lavishly spending on Jacob, showering him with costly gifts. With keen observation, he meticulously documented and eavesdropped on their discussions. He caught a glimpse of a conversation between Emily and her closest confidant, Bethany, where they revealed their most intimate secrets. At that moment, Jack discovered that Bethany was involved in an affair with her brother-in-law. On a Saturday afternoon, as Jack rummaged through Emily's handbag, he stumbled upon the spare key to Jacob's apartment, tucked away at the bottom. Without hesitation, he sped to the mall to have a copy created. The next week, he made his way to Jacob's apartment. The building stood in a dilapidated area, its age evident in the peeling paint and crumbling facade. It was so neglected that security cameras were absent, and the main entrance remained unlocked, inviting anyone who dared to enter. Within the confines of the room, Jack subtly positioned a number of minuscule concealed cameras, each fueled by enduring lithium-button batteries. As he rummaged through the apartment, he stumbled upon all the lavish items Emily had acquired for Jacob. With a resolute intent to bring about the greatest turmoil for both Emily and her lover, Jack meticulously devised a scheme. He commissioned a goldsmith to craft replicas of all of Emily's jewelry, substituting them with gold-plated copper imitations. Furthermore, he hired an expert to create a replica of Lou Train Blue by Pignol, providing detailed guidelines to ensure it appeared genuine. Jack subsequently contacted his childhood friend, Scott, who works as a corporate lawyer. Following the explanation of his strategy, Scott scheduled a meeting for a few days later. During the meeting, Jack met Scott's cousin, Lydia, who was highly skilled in auditing. Jack was candid with them. He aimed to strategically undermine his company while keeping a watchful eye from afar. In the years to come, he envisioned Ava reclaiming ownership of the company. As Jack and Lydia met often, whether at her office or over lunch, a bond naturally formed. Lydia found herself alone, having lost her husband. She was left to navigate life on her own after her husband tragically passed away in a car accident, now solely responsible for raising their 10-year-old son. Since his departure, she had not pursued any romantic relationships. One evening, Jack extended an invitation for dinner and a movie. Lydia agreed. On that very night, Ava was at a friend's place, while Jack informed Emily that he would be working late. As they approached Lydia's driveway, Jack glanced over at her. "Thank you for accepting my invitation," he expressed. Lydia beamed. "This marks my first date since the loss of my husband." Jack acknowledged this with understanding. "Did you find it enjoyable?" "Indeed," she responded. "Shall we have another go at it sometime?" Jack promised her that he would be available whenever she needed him. "We must collaborate, and you remain committed," she murmured gently before leaning in to plant a kiss on his cheek. "Let's proceed gradually." With that, she swung open the car door and strolled toward her house. In the meantime, Jack gently nudged Emily towards the idea of exchanging her car. At first, she felt uncertain as her affection for her Lexus ran deep. Yet, when he proposed that cruising in a BMW convertible would give her a more youthful appearance, she promptly reconsidered. With the Lexus completely paid off, Jack decided to sell it and kept the cash for himself. Jack secured a loan for the BMW, placing all the details under Emily's name. As she affixed her signature to the documents, she was under the impression that she was merely endorsing the ownership certificate. Yet, intertwined with the paperwork were supplementary documents that would ultimately be used against her. Several weeks passed, and Jack became aware of something unsettling. Once Emily stepped into the bathroom after her encounter with Jacob, he exited the bedroom, entirely bare, and made his way into Ava's room. Startled, Jack alerted Ava, and she was utterly enraged. They chose to set up a concealed camera in her room to reveal the reality. Their findings were profoundly disturbing. Jacob would discreetly open Ava's drawer, take her undergarments, and indulge in actions that crossed boundaries. That very afternoon, as Emily lounged on the couch, Ava stealthily approached her from behind, brandishing a knife. If Jack hadn't stepped in when he did, Ava might have caused serious harm to Emily, or worse. Later that evening, Ava informed her father that even if she had proceeded with it, she wouldn't have encountered prison time due to her status as a minor. In the meantime, Jack felt no shock as he caught wind of Jacob convincing Emily to end her marriage and seize all of his possessions. Yet, Jacob and Emily remained oblivious to the fact that Jack was perpetually one step ahead of them. He was aware that Emily often permitted Jacob to take the wheel of the BMW and even granted him moments of intimacy with her in the back seat. He knew that Emily had sought advice from a divorce attorney suggested by Philip, and that the attorney would soon start looking into his financial situation. Foreseeing their intentions, Jack sprang into action. After a brief pause, he decided to secure a second mortgage on his home, channeling the funds into fully supporting Ava's education. The following day, he made the formal announcement of his bankruptcy. He was aware that the moment he received the divorce papers, Bethany would swiftly change the locks on his house while they were in New York for the weekend prior to Ava's departure. At the barbecue gathering that weekend, both Jack and Ava executed their parts flawlessly. Philip and Bethany were as amicable as always, with Philip lending a hand to Jack as he grilled the meat. It was unimaginable that they were plotting in secrecy, away from his awareness. On that Friday morning, as Emily occupied the bathroom, Jack took advantage of the moment. He grabbed her phone and fired off a text to Jacob. "I'll head to your apartment at 8. I wish to spend time with you before I depart with them for the final occasion. Obtain the necessary approval from your workplace and swiftly return home to seize what rightfully belongs to you. I'll let them know I have to grab a few items. Please refrain from calling or texting. I'm opting to leave my phone at home, just in case they attempt to contact me. Looking forward to our next meeting, my beloved partner." Once the message was sent, Jack swiftly deleted it and returned the phone to Emily's handbag. Unbeknownst to Jacob, as he crossed the threshold of his apartment, 3 men would be poised and waiting for his arrival. They planned to surprise him, pressing a knife against his throat, compelling him to draft a resignation email to his manager and then another to his landlord, declaring his intention to vacate the apartment by the month's end. Subsequently, they would administer a sedative, tidy up his living space, eliminate any monitoring equipment, and take anything portable, crafting the illusion that he had departed willingly. His body would subsequently be enveloped in a carpet, positioned in a van outside, and taken away. One of the men would drive away in his car and get rid of it. Jacob vanished without a trace. Neither Ava nor Lydia would ever uncover the truth of what truly transpired with him. It was a hidden truth that Jack planned to carry with him forever. On a Friday afternoon, following the service, Jack made his way to a motel. That evening, while he tuned into the news, a chuckle escaped him. Prior to dinner, one of the individuals connected to the event at Jacob's apartment came to see him. Silently, he passed Jack the surveillance cameras and accepted the final payment. No dialogue occurred. No indication was given regarding the location of Jacob's burial site. On Saturday morning, Jack left the motel, bought a new cell phone, and got rid of his old one. He picked up the phone to share his new number with Ava before heading over to Lydia's place. In that space, he dedicated his hours to meticulously reviewing and refining the video recordings. He took care to obscure Jacob's face, ensuring that the authorities would not link him to Emily should Jacob ever be reported missing. While residing in the guest room, Jack seized the opportunity to connect with Lydia's son. In the meantime, he and Lydia pressed ahead with the concluding stage of their strategy. A senior couple from Seattle was poised to acquire Bill's business. But they were far from ordinary buyers. The pair was, indeed, Lydia's uncle and aunt. The transition was orchestrated to ensure that all employees retained their positions. On Monday, Jack got a call from Ava, who told him that Emily was searching for him. Their laughter echoed in response to the news. Subsequently, Jack shared all the damning videos on a graphic website, employing a fictitious email address. He subsequently shared the link with all their acquaintances, including Emily's brother-in-law. For the next 3 months, Jack resided at Lydia's house, biding his time until his divorce hearing. Despite their deepening bond, Lydia stood her ground. They would refrain from any physical relationship until Jack was officially single. He acknowledged her choice, as he was resolute in upholding his commitments until the final moments of his marriage. Residing at Lydia's place came with an additional advantage. If any inquiries came up, Jack could easily claim that he was financially struggling, without a job, and residing in a friend's guest room out of goodwill until he managed to regain his stability. As the day of the hearing dawned, Emily was nowhere to be found in the courtroom. With the house and her car already taken back, and Jack having declared bankruptcy, the judge approved the divorce without any alimony or division of assets. Emily's attorney chose not to challenge the decision. As Jack strolled through the courthouse corridor, he encountered the attorney. "You possess remarkable intelligence, Mr. Thornton," the lawyer commented. "Am I?" Jack turned away, his expression clouded with discontent. Returning to the current moment. "Father? Hello, Dad. Are you there?" Jack jolted back to the present moment. "Indeed, darling. Could you repeat that?" "The moment has arrived for the father-daughter dance. All eyes are on you, and you remain still. Apologies, dear princess. My thoughts wandered to distant places." Jack grasped Ava's hand, twirled her gracefully, and together they swayed to the enchanting rhythm of the music. As the final notes faded, he leaned closer and murmured, "Now it's time for me to dance with your mom." Ava smiled with a sense of understanding. "And remember, my younger sibling holds the 3rd position on the list." Jack let out a soft laugh before approaching Lydia, extending an invitation for her to join him on the dance floor. Later that evening, Jack made his way to the bar and requested a whiskey. As he savored the sip, his thoughts wandered back to a phone call he had received in the solitude of his bedroom. "Greetings, Mr. Thornton." "Greetings. I am Dr. Henry Duzza hailing from Dallas, Texas. I'm reaching out about your wife." Jack furrowed his brow, lost in thought. "My spouse. What seems to be the issue with my wife?" The doctor clarified. "I mean your former spouse, Emily Thornton." The mention of that name after 5 long years struck Bill like a bolt of lightning. He collapsed onto the bed. "I'm all ears, doctor. I am a psychologist, and I have been providing care for Emily during her last days." "Her last moments?" Jack responded, perplexed. "Indeed, Mr. Thornton. If you could spare a moment, I would appreciate the opportunity to explain." "Proceed," Jack urged, steadying himself. "Your former spouse has recounted her entire life narrative to me, from her early years right up to the point at which our paths crossed. She confided in me that you were the only man she had ever been with before Jacob, a choice she now sees as a mistake, one that fills her with deep regret. Emily detailed every aspect, from the divorce she had envisioned to the consequences that followed. She was convinced that Jack had been aware of the affair from the very beginning and had meticulously planned her ruin. Embracing her reality, she recognized the profound loss of her husband and daughter, coming to terms with the fact that she bore the weight of responsibility alone. On the day she departed from the town, she possessed a mere $200 to her name. In a frantic bid to flee the repercussions of her choices and the shame of her revealed betrayals, she boarded the nearest bus, setting her course for Texas. She secured a position as a waitress in a shabby, low-quality bar along Interstate 20, a spot mostly visited by truck drivers. The proprietor of the bar offered her a modest room on the first floor at a bargain rate, yet he took advantage of her at his convenience. A year later, she found herself expecting. Facing the absence of health insurance and lacking the necessary funds for adequate medical care, she turned to an inexpensive, unlicensed practitioner for an abortion. The experience was a calamity, resulting in both physical and emotional wounds that would linger long after. Another year went by, and the bar owner started exploiting her with truckers. Some took precautions, while others chose not to. When she arrived at the hospital, she was in a critical state, battling severe STDs, and had already been diagnosed with AIDS. Her health declined swiftly, leaving her a mere echo of who she once was, acutely conscious of her impending fate. Her ultimate desire was to reunite with Jack just once more. "I genuinely regret to learn that." Jack responded, "Doctor, today marks the celebration of my daughter's wedding. I'll reach out to you with a call next week." "Mr. Thornton," the doctor cautioned, "don't delay too much. I will provide you with my direct number." In that instant, Lydia drew near, encircling her husband in a warm embrace. "Hey, sweetheart, be careful not to overindulge. You'll need to drive us home later," she said with a playful smile before kissing him softly. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, darling," Jack whispered, gently pushing his glass away. "I would never take any action that could jeopardize your safety or our son's well-being. Come on, let's move to the rhythm. I long to embrace you tightly." A few days later, in his office, Jack made a call to Dr. Dusa. He conveyed that because of his substantial workload, he would not be able to travel to Texas. The physician recommended having a conversation with Emily via phone. The doctor mentioned that he could transfer the call to her ward. A nurse can bring a cordless phone to her bedside. Shortly thereafter, a delicate voice emerged from the other end of the line. "Is that you, Bill?" "Indeed, Emily. It is I." Emily succumbed to her emotions, tears streaming down her face. "Ah, Bill. I sincerely apologize. I apologize for my actions and their impact on you and our family. Now I am facing the consequences. I have let go of any resentment towards you, Emily." Jack exhaled deeply, declaring that he had moved on with his life and found happiness now. "Truly, my gratitude goes to you. Following the divorce, I found myself marrying an extraordinary woman. We share a son, and Ava refers to her mother as Mom. They have a fantastic rapport. Just so you know, Ava tied the knot last Saturday. The ceremony was truly beautiful. Her mother managed all the details. One day, Ava's children will refer to her as Grandma. We are eagerly anticipating that moment." Jack could perceive the sound of Emily's sobs resonating from the other end. Suddenly, a stir erupted in the background. "Mr. Thornton?" A frantic voice broke through the silence. "I am Nurse Angelica. I regret to inform you that I must end our conversation now." The connection was lost. Jack reclined in his chair, his gaze drifting to the framed family photo resting on his desk. He chuckled quietly to himself. "He who laughs last, laughs best," he whispered softly. "Esteemed audience, we invite you to express your opinions in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected." Cuda, a family torn apart by secrets, betrayed by a cheating wife, Reddit story, audio story. Tag Emota. Hashtag Reddit cheating, hashtag cheating stories, hashtag Reddit stories. The video, relationship stories. Reddit update, Reddit relationship advice, Reddit relationship, Reddit cheating, open marriage, open relationship, caught, stories, cheat, Reddit, discredit, surviving, infidelity, Cheating story actually happened. Cheating story real. True cheating story. Reddit cheating story. r/surviving infidelity. Surviving infidelity. Reddit marriage. Wife cheated I can't forgive. Reddit AP. Exposed wife. Cheat exposed. Affair. Lost love chronicles. Cheating wife.